I think this is actually one of the highlights of the conference. At least I've been to a few of the keynotes from Markos, and it is not only informative, but it's also a little entertaining. So I'm really, really pleased that Markos has made it all the way from Munich, Germany to Odense. And yeah, we're looking forward to hear what you have to say about the future of sports. So just to introduce you a bit more, Markos is a serial entrepreneur. I'm sure he'll tell you more about what he's been doing. But his latest venture is Fun with Balls. You might have heard a bit about it, but I'm sure you'll hear more. And he's also the author of a book called The Future of Sports. Actually, it's in German, so I don't know. I don't remember the title in German, but it's going to come in English as well. And Markos, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thanks for taking the time. It's actually, we just noticed yesterday, it's my second time ever being in Denmark. And the funny thing is, the first time that I've been to Denmark, the story actually fits quite well. I was here when I was 17. By then, one of my best friends was like, hey, my mom has this house for the summer and we're gonna go to Denmark and spend time on the beach. I was like, yeah, I love the sea. And we went here and it was really funny because the weather was exactly like it was yesterday. And I grew up at the sea, but for me, like the sea was like, you know, fish, swimming, diving, rocks, reefs, and here it was just like sand and it goes into the water forever. And that was it. The funny thing is, and I don't know how we managed it back then, but after a couple of days, we were zapping through MTV. And we saw a documentary about Ibiza back in, it was 1997 or 8, and everybody was dancing, you know, like, and we were like, we need to go there. And we ended up hitchhiking there, like 2 17-year-olds, like we just packed our bags and we learned a lot through the trip, a lot of improvisation, and actually laid the foundation to a lot of things that I now use in business. But the very interesting information is just, Denmark is still very amazing, but for us as 17-year-olds at that time, at that space, a different product was much, much more desirable, and we went through a lot of pain and a very, very big adventure to actually make it happen. And you'll see later why that is actually important. A little disclaimer that I got used to actually displaying with every single presentation I do. This is important, read it through. I don't want any excuses. I don't want anybody in the end to come with like, yeah, but, yeah, we could do that, but there is no but. I never had help, so I'm pretty sure you have a lot of people that would help you, so there's no excuses. That just from the beginning. So a couple of words from my background so you understand where I come from, and let me just change that for a second. This is better. I grew up doing a lot of projects in technology and creativity and in the intersection of that. So the reason why I want to tell you that is so you understand what my basically background is and how I ended up in the position where I am today. This included a lot of super fancy things like art installations. I started a company at the age of 20. This happened all over the world. I did stuff in China, in the US, a lot of facade projections. These were like interactive, like lighted suits that we then in the end even put on some Red Bull skydivers and we shot them out of a helicopter at night because it looked funny if there's little lighting, lit up mannequins falling from the sky. A lot of creative stuff, a lot of very crazy and edgy stuff. Did a lot of nightclubs in China. That was fun. And yeah, just basically almost was at a point where I said, hey, made it. Had my design agency, was in cool design interviews, and people were like, oh yeah, you need to go to this guy to get the fancy stuff. And it was cool. It was a lot of fun, obviously. But at some point, I kind of like, okay, where does this go? So I was always somebody very edgy. I was always somebody trying to go like, okay, what's the next step? So I was like, okay, maybe I'm gonna go visit these guys. And since I've always been doing a lot of art installation with projections, lasers, and so on, I was like, hey, I think the hardest place to do this on the planet would probably be Antarctica, so let's do that. And even managed to do that, so I got together with a German research institute and we went to Antarctica, projected on, or went to the South Georgia actually, met a lot of penguins, and then did a lot of cool art installations on big icebergs. Even coming back after that, I was like, okay, that was fine. National Geographic did their story and so on. I was like, okay, what's next? And you probably know that nowadays everybody says purpose is the thing. And I highly encourage that. If you don't have purpose in everything that you do, quit it, do something else, because we have enough people taking care of the simple money. It doesn't matter nowadays. Like the standard jobs are done. We need more people doing things out of reasons. And where I learned that was at some night I was sitting in Shanghai, and I was going back and forth like almost twice a week. And I was like, hey, there's a flight to Pyongyang. Why are there flights to Pyongyang if this is the forbidden country and you cannot go there? So I flew there. Funnily enough, quick story, through a coincidence, met the Minister of the Tourism. And I was like, hey, it's so nice that you're here. And you have a lovely country, beautiful architecture, lovely culture. Like, we don't want to talk about the political system, but your tourism really sucks because people go with the same stereotypes that they actually enter the country. So we took a little ride through the country and he showed me around. I was like, hey, cool, you have waves. Why don't we do a surf school here? Did a surf school, again, mind-breaking. It was super, super nice. We met a lot of people. You can even go there now. And yeah, it's still active. We've obviously gained a lot of PR about it. It was really, really cool. So coming back from that, I was like, okay, cool. So now I did this whole design thing. I flew around with the fancy DJs and the private jets. I was really trying to find something where I feel much more important in terms of towards myself. So you go to at night in bed and it's like, hey, cool. I spent $2.5 million that Hugo Boss gave me to create a fancy fashion show, and now we just blew it out for confetti and some fireworks. A little bit more substance. So I try to basically bring these three things together in what I do now. And the very simple truth is, if you condense everything down, humans have been roaming the face of Earth for hundreds, thousands of years. In the very beginning, hey, life was hard, probability of you dying was super high. It's like, hey, good morning, boom, saber-toothed tiger, you're gone, you fell down a cliff or whatever, didn't find food. So the death was imminent every single second. At some point, that obviously changed, we evolved, and then we started eating each other's heads in, and that was the other death coming in. So we're like, hey, I'm probably not gonna starve, but there might be a crazy Viking around the corner smashing my skull in. So there was that fear. The funny thing is, out of that fear, actually something happened. And this is what we call today's sports. So out of, we smashed our heads in, at some point we stopped smashing our heads in for a little while, and we were like, okay, cool. I think the Vikings are going to come back. What are we going to do? Well, we need to run away from them. Why don't we train a little bit running so when they come back, we're not all fat and lazy, we have a little thing. And this is where sports started. And sports has so many elements that are obviously physical, mental, socially, like it became a very, very important part. And if you think about digital technology today, that was what sports used to have as an attractive factor a couple of years ago. You had your normal life. You went into that thing, you did your work. Just a soccer match, that was the highlight. That was our Fortnite of today. That was our Netflix of today. That was when the pattern changed, when you became somebody else, when you interacted in a social way. The big problem is, if you look at this, this is only the obesity rate. I'm not talking of all the other elements that happen if you don't do sports. Sports or general physical fitness is obviously the best and easiest way to avoid a crazy variety of things, starting from very simple, if I don't train my feet well, the next time I'm going to run down the stairs and slip a little bit, I'm probably going to break it instead of just flipping over and going on, to mental issues, obesity, social interaction, feeling alone, learning discipline, interacting with others, reaching your goals. Like, this whole thing is such a valuable big element of our lives, but the big problem is it's declining rapidly. And I think she's not here right now, but we've heard that before with all the data. It's very simple. We still have a lot of kids doing sports, but that's mainly because their parents push them in. At some point, when they turn 12, 13, 14, 15, other things take over. So the overall number of sports is on a crazy decline. And the thing is, and this is where I'm going to start being later on in the last part of the presentation, a little bit aggressive towards some of you, maybe. People notice it, but people don't see it as a problem. So you have the Federation of Sports X, let's say tennis, and they're like, yeah, this year we have another 2 or 3 less members, but it's just 2%. Come on, we're still going to keep our job. But hey, it's been going like that for 25 years. And how are you going to be able to maintain the sport if you don't have any trainers? If you, like, and they're not able to compete with the digital world. So WHO says 150 minutes of sports minimum. Who do their 21 minutes today of sports? Nobody. I actually persuaded Ben to at least run to the pastry place, which was, I think, a 200-meter sprint. So we made our 45 seconds. Here's the number that people actually spend on their smartphone. This might look bad, but it looks even worse if you look at it this way. That is per week, and that is per day. That's the overall average. This is already 1 year old, and it's getting worse. And you have to understand the one is like declining at a frightening rate, but the other one is growing at an exponential crazy rate. So this all leads to obviously this. People don't go into the sports facilities anymore. It's not that sports has been getting worse, it's just everything else has been getting so much more attractive. So basically it's hard to compete. Even each one of us today is like, well, I can go out and run in the rain, no offense with the beautiful Danish weather here, or I can just switch on my phone, check my emails, be in my tunnel for 2 hours, and then also go on LinkedIn, maybe start I'm gonna go to bed. This is something that we have to break, and we need a lot of people and a lot of brain power to actually work on this in so many ways, because first of all, we have to catch up this rapid decline, and then we have to make sure that it can keep up with this rapid exponential growth of digital media. So we all know this is super attractive. We sat down and said, okay, let's help them. Then we completely forgot that. I was like, that's a bullshit. Sorry, I'm going to swear a lot during the rest of the presentation. That's a complete stupid idea. Because if we have this idea of let's help them, we need to help the kids to be more active, that's complete bullshit, because we need to make them want it. This whole approach that most federations have is, we need to show the kids that tennis is a really great sport. That's your perspective. The kid is not going to care. You need to make it. You need to make the attractive, the product, the activity, whatever, as attractive, so they really want to go for it. You cannot force them to. Nothing works with forcing nowadays. Good. Very simple. The limbic brain, limbic center in our brain, it creates our endorphins. It creates all the cool fireworks when you're in love. And it also creates like the good feeling when you're actually doing something that you enjoy. Some people think you can actually paint that over with discipline, and people just need to realize that the 65-year-old person knows better and they need to accept it. That's not going to happen. The way we did it, and this is, I'm always going to try to have my presentations not as advertorials or whatever. So I'm just going to go through with this quickly, and then I'm going to tell you a couple of learnings that I wish that everybody actually tries to memorize when they try to build that innovation or that change themselves. So we call it sportification. You can have a look at the video. I hope it plays here. We have a couple of different products from all different areas. It always works with platforms. We don't try to have technical solutions for like, look, this is a sensor. We try to think of it from the other way. If you are a soccer player and you want to enjoy something, or we want to bring you into the facility, what would that activity actually need to be able to provide so it's as fun that you want to try it out and stick with it for a very, very long time? It's our own sensor technology. This is all fancy shit. Like a lot of motion tracking, super cool algorithms. I'm not going to go into it too deep. You can research your stuff yourself, because once you take care of the details, you've solved the main question, getting people into the door. And this is what I like to focus much more, because once you have that attractiveness, once I developed the smartphone and I found out that there's apps, I sort of made it. I just need to find the best apps possible. So how did we do this? Very simple playbook. First of all, we believe you need to lower the entry barriers even into the minus if you can. If you have a tennis center, some tennis centers, some squash centers, some soccer centers, they still go like, oh, are you a soccer player? Well, then maybe come back. They're not even open to people that say, oh, I never did any sports, or I weigh 160 kilos and I'm probably going to fall over, but I would like to try that. They're probably going to send them away. People can't afford to send people away anymore. And you also need to be able to open your style, basically your CI of the sport, so people actually don't have a bad feeling to even just step into a tennis center. If I go to a golf course, or golf is also having problems with young people, hey, if I was 15, I wouldn't even dare to walk into that door of that country club. I would be like, oh, they're going to probably kick me out. Second thing, we broaden the use, meaning we're saying like a sports facility, for example, this sports hall, that is a sports hall. You can play basketball, soccer, I see, probably also badminton or whatever. But hey, this can be a Saturday afternoon playground. This can be where people have their children's birthday parties. This can be where they have crazy games. They can have an esports tournament here. You need to completely rethink how you treat a facility. And obviously connect audiences. In our squash courts, we now just had a news from New York. One of their baseball teams is now training in one of our squash courts because it has the interactive system. So once a week, the whole kids' baseball team is going to sit in a bus, drive for 1 hour, go to a squash court for their baseball training, even though they have a complete baseball pitch. But the kids love it. And, and all this basically leads to a true intrinsic motivation. So meaning like you, instead of trying to persuade people to buy a product, you need to bring them to a point where they literally want to smash in your door. This is, for example, a system that's in a co-working space in Zurich. This is used 8 to 9 hours every day of active playtime. It's a sports play wall in a co-working space, and it's used 8 to 9 hours per day. If you go to any other sports facility, a tennis center, and ask them, do you rent out that place 8 to 9 hours per day? They're gonna shake your head and think you're crazy. Some people, when we give them the data of all our clients, they think we're actually trying to trick them into buying the system, because sometimes the numbers look ridiculously good that they think, yeah, we manufactured them. Good. So we do this in training, we do this in retail, event, education, and so far we're really good. We're 25 people, we're selling into 40 countries in the world, we're working with a lot of universities now, so always happy to collaborate on that. What I want to get now into is a quick outlook, and then we're going to get to the interesting part for you guys. This is the new generation of what we developed. Looks very, not too fancy, but it actually is, because it all goes into a system that you can also now use at home. So we're launching that towards the end of the year. This is like a completely B2C. You order it online, you put it on your wall, you have the same games, can basically do 99% of all the other stuff. And think of it like the PlayStation or Peloton for all sorts of motion tracking games. This is how it looks. Good. Now to the last part of my presentation. This is also the part where I very much encourage everybody to reflect a little bit and really try to think why I say this. Some of you might be a little bit insulted. But then again, it's Carson's fault that I'm here. He knew what he was getting into, so if you want to complain, you can complain directly with him. So, first of all, understand the speed that we're working at. So, there's two elements of this. First of all, you got to understand the outside speed, and you got to understand your own speed. If you're now thinking that, hey, cool, there's motion tracking or whatever, these 2 months that you're probably going to be looking into this and researching is other people have started complete companies, launched them, failed, reworked everything, launched them again, and they're preparing their IPO. This is something that you have to get used to. This is something that federations have to get used to. You're not going to be okay if you say, oh, we should really think about this in the next budgeting call in February. No, you need to change the way that you actually work with speed, because if you're not, you're just going to stay exactly at the position. And things changed at a breakneck speed. This is, some of you probably know, this is not like super crazy, I didn't come up with this. This is how long it took certain innovations to actually get 50 million users. Starting from the telephone in 75 years to Pokemon Go in 19 days. I'm pretty sure Clubhouse probably went over that in 5 days. I don't know. But look at that so you understand the game that you're into. Because you see this as everything actually, you have to look left, you have to look right and understand. We're at a hyper speed car. You cannot go there with your little chair and say, I'm going to sit here and wait this out. Who knows these guys? Nobody? Well, if you don't know these guys, this is one of the most successful things that is out there right now. You need to get yourself informed. I'm not saying that you now need to become a 15-year-old that is spending their time on TikTok and learning dances and playing computer games, but you need to understand why these things work. This is Fortnite, by the way. You need to understand the logic of it. You need to know in Germany we say Zeitgeist, the modern thinking of why this is great and why it works great. If you don't, you're basically ignoring the youth, and you think you know better. And that's a very, very, very bad thing nowadays, because once you reach the point that you're like, wow, all these young people, like, you're losing out. That's the moment you stop in a race where everybody's going to a different place. And if you compare it with this, I mean, this is how still we're every day we go into soccer schools, because soccer is one of the main applications also for our system. This is how a lot of training looks nowadays. And if you ever spend a little time, at least watch a YouTube video, what happens on Fortnite, and just hold them side by side, you should get a very, very good understanding why this one is not very attractive for a 15-year-old. Second thing is embrace technology. Who knows what this guy is doing? Okay, 2, okay, good. And you have to use it. He's flying a drone. This is actually a fly-per-view drone. And for those of you who, one thing that I learned when I went into innovation and all these future topics is that people have a completely wrong perception of what already exists. So a lot of times they're like, yeah, that's all future topic. You need to understand what already is there in very small niches, obviously, and then understand that it's only going to take half a year till it's there. This thing here, it's already there. It's a fly-per-view drone. You see the view of the drone. There's a load of sensors and algorithms, so you can't bump into things. You can automatically fly. You can stop it. You can fly back. And it basically enables you to do that stuff with very, very little training. And it's super easy. Like, we're not going to watch the whole thing, but the speed of this stuff is insane. Like, you probably take 1 or 2 hours and you're gonna make these kind of shots, cinema quality, without even knowing how you're doing it. It's all basically good technology. So if you look at this, this is something that you can now buy in a normal shop already. So if I now ask you, what's the next steps? Do we fly around with drone suits? Like, who thinks that we will have sports with fully augmented drone suits at some point, and we do it like Harry Potter, and we're going to compete in a 4-dimensional space and fly around? Who thinks that's going to happen in the next 5 years? 1, 2. Okay, so about 5%. This is Gravity Industries. They've been doing this for years already. They're already doing their own races. They wanted to have a world championship in that. They already started doing other, more gamified versions of it. So this is one of the early ones. This is standard stuff. These people have been training this for years. They're landing on mountaintops. They're going to be like, cool, we just shoot up there. The speed of this and the technology within this is insane. And it is all there. It's going to change all our lives in a rapid pace. Good. Now that we're like in the very heights, everything's possible, technology, yay, yay. Who knows this lady? Okay, very important. Don't get high on your own drugs. Like, don't sell shit that's not possible. That's very important. Be humble, get your focus. This lady learned it the hard way. Read up on her story. Amanda Holmes, she tried to promise that she's gonna revolutionize medical analysis, and basically it was all a big fake for billions and billions of dollars. So always, it's find the sweet spot where you know what you can actually achieve in quicker speed than university speed, sorry. But don't overdo it. Next thing, be aware, and I don't know, I think Lars, you said it, like, be aware that the first version of whatever you want to try is going to be extremely shitty. Like, embrace that. Like, literally go and it's like, we're going to build a super, super failing and super ugly and hard to use, and we're going to build a piece of crap. And then we're going to look at it and we're going to build it better. And that's something that you have to very, very much internalize. When we're trying out new things, we literally say, like, this is going to break down. It's like, okay, cool, then build it that way. Because if you look at this, this is our first prototype from the interactive squash. It was like, that's how we started. And a couple of years later, we're here, and we sold this in over 30 countries, and we're working with a global federation. And this is like, basically everybody who's building a squash court will get one of these, because anything else makes no sense. I think a lot of people in the startup world know this grumpy old man, because you meet them 100 million times. And we've framed him by now, even in our sales calls and our projects, we framed him the immune response. Because it's, no matter where you go into, is like, who's part of a sports federation governing body, or like who's in one sport here? Okay, which sport? Football. If I now go into football and say, listen, we're going to change this completely around, this is all going to be a half computer game, half thing, everybody in the football is like, whoa, 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 fuck off, please. Like, whoever you are, I don't want to, no, please. Like, because it's frightening. It's a new thing. It's before something changes, there's obviously this immune response. Even we have it. And there's a funny quote that I always like. Who came here by train? Did you die? That was people, that was professors, that was people that, and they said, there's this train thing, and they were just frightened, and they said, people are gonna die. It's just like, I don't understand it, they're gonna die. Like, just put a lid on it. The very funny thing is, if you don't, sorry, I thought there's another slide. If you don't find if you don't anticipate the immune response, the chances are that the immune response actually succeeds. Meaning it's just gonna scare you away with a very thin layer of, and you're gonna be like, oh no, I'm not gonna write that guy again. You need to work with that. And that's actually the hardest and most ugly part, because if you really believe what you wanna do, you gotta go for it, you gotta go for it, you gotta go for it, even though people slap you in the face all the time. Or even if you tell you many, many times, we don't wanna have you here, which is, we've been told that literally, like, just stop messing around with our sport. The other thing is, that's a dodo, lazy gets you killed. Whatever you might do, it's always gonna be a load of work. Like, laziness is probably the biggest differentiating factor, or the biggest factor holding back any form of innovation that we found. And it's literally, it comes down to the very human being. If I meet these people and they're gonna tell me all their young ideas, I might have to look at concepts and answer emails, but I'm paid because I've worked for the Federation for like 25 years. If I don't do it, I can go home at 3 o'clock. And I only have 6 years till I get retired. So, I'm not gonna answer this one. It's probably the biggest thing holding people back to find solutions that will benefit the whole humanity. It's single people sitting in decision positions being lazy. Good. Another thing that we came to the immune response is, funny thing is, you also have your own immune response to crazy ideas. And it's called self-reflection, it's fear, it's whatever you are. And because I brought the one quote, I love this one, because it's always easy to judge others, but there's also, we always judge ourselves, and sometimes we make the worst possible decisions or comments about our own world. And I don't know if you know this one, but I love it. I love it. It's the guy inventing the mobile phone telling you it's never going to be bigger than the wired phone. One of the last points, this is Narcissus. He basically drowned because he was so in love with his own reflection that at some point he looked into the water, and then he fell in and he drowned. And in many, many cases, I think that applies to our own doings a lot, especially in sports governance, especially in schools or any decision positions. Like, you're always focused on yourself. You completely forget that where you are in society, what you're actually entitled to do, why you get taxpayer money, not just to have a bunch of old tennis players continue to play tennis. So it's always very important to reflect, like, get outside people and get people that dislike you in and let them tell you why they dislike you, and then think if there's actually a true point in that. Good. One thing that I learned in my days with marketing and design is that's also the reason why our company is called Fun with Balls. Yes, we know that can be misunderstood. Well, perfect. Now we got your attention. Always find a way in our modern days to actually somehow get into the attention span, even if it's with something, well, like, I have that so many times, and it's actually been part of our growth strategies. Like, when I go to events and people are like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm Markos from Fun with Balls. They're like, huh? If I say, hey, I'm Markos from New Soccer Technologies, they would probably be, oh, another guy. I have a conversation. It's the same the way that works with social media. If I have a cool video, if I have the first 3 seconds right, I got your attention. I have 10 seconds to tell you why this is important. Work with that, understand it, get people that actually can teach you how to do it. And whenever you do something, one very, very important part is resilience. We live in a time where everybody has a comment for everything. And to achieve the big things, also what Max said, and I very much like that, to achieve the important things that we need to do nowadays, to find solutions, how we can get people motivated, how we can solve a crisis that is in the making, you're gonna need to go a long way into a heavy road where a lot of people are gonna be complaining, they're gonna blah, 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 they dislike that you're happy, they dislike that you're actually doing what you like, they wish you would just fail so you could come down at their level and say, hey, see, I told you, hey, I come from Germany, so man, we know that shit. So always work on your resilience. Do your homework, do your math, but hey, don't give a fuck if everybody has an opinion. Like, just do your thing. Good. Very, very last point, ask for help. We're super open, like you said today, we like hand out stuff, we give people APIs, we give them our code. We're actually over positive in terms of collaboration. Like we like to help people. Most of the people that we hired, we found in the craziest, funniest ways. And I very much encourage you to do that because collaboration can be a magical thing. And all the great things basically always come together if there's a doctor and a gardener and they met and then this and that happened. So encourage these situations, use these events for that and just help each other out. And for the very, very, very last part, we're in Munich. Whenever you're there, we have a big campus, come by, we can play. And since Carsten wanted to know, see it, now this thing is not working. Oh, it's not working. Carsten, I don't have the picture of our raccoons. I promised to put it in. Yeah, and so if you visit us, we also have raccoons, no kidding. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, we can just chat like this and just go out there and create some really, really awesome shit because we need that, please.
I'll find it.